So we're here down at the shop. It's Yori and Alex here.
Hello. Howdy.
We just spent the last week cleaning this whole place up. Yori, we did the whole yard. We're going to take a tour on the inside of the building to show how much progress these guys made on getting it cleaned up, and we're going to also look at what kind of upgrades and updates need to be done in the building. So we'll start in the room next to the sound room, which is kind of where Eric stays when he's in town here. So starting in this room, Eric, so right now this is kind of the central office here. Eric's able to look at you know, YouTube videos and look at the forum and stuff. No email, but he is kind of watching what's online. Got the whole security camera set up, getting all the books organized. So this whole room in here was kind of a mess. Not kind of, it was, the whole building was a mess. Now everything is pretty organized and straightened up. Got these receivers moved over here to the corner.
They're just in here for now. So this room needs major reconstruction. These walls are virtually non-existent. There's no ventilation system, so the dust just pours in here and makes a mess out of the place. So first thing that needs to be done is another wall needs to be built across here. We have that marked out. But,
we'll ballpark from about where?
Somewhere about this point here, so that the door will be over here, so there's no way when you open the door that dust and a bunch of stuff just blows into the building. And then that also helps block out the deafening sound of having the highway right out there in front of the building. This door gets moved over more. This wall becomes a double wall like the sound room wall.
Like this one here.
So that none of the noise. You can see the construction here. This is all double wall. So this wall here will continue to be built out. This one has to be stripped, re-insulated. So this will be a double thick wall. Wall going across, and then this all gets ripped out and put into also a double sound barricading wall and insulated. Well, the windows become like in a recording studio, there'll be double windows. So this is the viewing area for whatever like cosmic induction generator or experiments that are associated with the AM transmitter. They're viewed here, and then that will be controlled from this point. And this wall has chicken wire screen to keep the high voltage RF fields from getting into this room. So when this room is done, I have the floor plan in here. So that room is referred to as the central office. Let's get a picture of what the stuff will look like, even though it won't be this exotic, but it'll be this will be kind of what the equipment looks like in there. This is the pictures of a full-blown telephone central office, like what your telephones used to connect to. So in this case, there'll be some switching, but the bulk of it will be for processing the earth signals. So the principal equipment will be the analog to digital converters to send the seismic information and sounds out digitally, the T1 carrier system, or T carrier in general, the Pythagorean master oscillator, and the analog computer. So these will be the racks here. This is about the maximum amount of racks I can get into that room. Those will have to be acquired. These are 11.5 feet high, and there's two widths. There's 19 and 23, so there'll be a combination of those in here. And then the window will be shortened a bit, and the desk goes there, and then the books and what have you. and then the bookshelves for all the related manuals and what have you. I was thinking of putting the battery bank in here, but the battery bank is going to go somewhere else most likely.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of what that room's got to look like.
Okay. Go walk into the main area.
The what?
The rest of the.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll follow you. So I just want to get some views here of the place now that it's cleaned up.
Yeah, we can talk about this equipment here. So there'll be one of these in the central office. This is what takes all the signals and puts them on one pair of wires and then brings them out to the mine or brings them back from the mine. So this was a rather lucky find to get a Western Electric Go carrier system. So these are the racks that are going to go out in the mine, but not necessarily all of this equipment's going to go out there. This here stuff here now is just for kind of testing out. But a lot of this equipment here will be the radio broadcasting transmitter and HF receiving out at the mine. And so these are some of the units here that are selected for that. The garage area will pretty much stay as it is. The transverse bulkhead will be going across here to keep the dust and noise out. The galley area and the workshop.
So a wall built all the way across.
Well, here I haven't decided on yet, but definitely across here. So this will be the actual laboratory space will be here.
Okay.
And the idea is to, this will all be open out here. This space is not economical to keep the dust out or to keep it warm or the noise. And it is a garage area, so other than the AM transmitters and what have you, and then there'll be a very large battery bank here to run all the equipment. So these are some of the initial batteries that we use, but later on it'll be the large telephone central office variety with the clear cases in the individual cells. So there's a number of DC voltages here. Principally minus 48 volts DC, plus 24 volts DC, and plus 130 volts DC will be the two main voltages.
And if there's the funds, it would be nice to replace these garage doors with the panel style with the R19 polystyrene thick foam inside, which are insulated.
That's really.
Because that's one of the biggest losses on.
Yeah, but that's the garage. So anyway, the wall goes up here, and this all gets double insulated for sound and what have you. The mezzanine goes in for storing parts, and then the benches will be custom made for this area here. Most of the books are going to go in the central office, so they're just stored here now temporarily. So this is an important bulkhead that needs to be established. The back wall is all just basically garbage. That's got to be all redone. This one's got to be redone and insulated, and this one's not that important as far as insulation goes. And then the lineman's group. This needs a bit of insulation. This wall has no insulation in it at all. That wall needs to be redone. The principal purpose of this room is for the line truck and all the insulators and bolts and what have you. Some minor storage. And then the whole electrical switchboard system gets built on this bulkhead here. That will be a very expensive part of the project. And then the isolation transformers to separate us from the NIMV energy will go in here, and there'll be like a cage door to keep people's fingers out. And they'll pretty much remain as a workbench here. And there'll probably be a mezzanine structure, and this will get redone later to take advantage of some of the ceiling height here that isn't particularly needed for racks or antenna clearances or any of that kind of stuff.
And what is your desire with the electrical system?
That goes over here.
So the breaker box will be on this wall?
Well, it's not going to be more. It's going to be more than just a breaker box. It's going to be an entire electrical system. All
the isolation transformers?
Isolation transformers will all go in here, and this will be all like the amp meters and watt meters, the circuit breakers, the rectifiers. All that will go over here. So it will start off with whatever comes in from the power company. That's another big expense. I can show you what's going on there when we get outside. But the two principal AC voltages here will be 110 4-phase and 220 3-phase. And then the DC voltages will be plus 130, plus 24, and minus 48. And possibly some smaller battery banks for the digital equipment might have to run on other voltages. That's yet to be determined. So the electrical system will be one of the biggest expenses. Now also, these rooms all have to be force ventilated to keep the dust out, and also to keep them from freezing in the winter because it gets quite cold here. This room has gotten down to about 10 degrees Fahrenheit in past winters, so that will be another expense. This will be a ventilating system, probably about 5 horsepower worth of airflow, along with whatever it takes to keep it warm in the winter. But there are alternative energy arrangements here to help with that in the 2 giant water tanks that are buried in the ground outside for the earth electrode. There's damn near 50,000 gallons of water capacity in there, so that could be used as a heat source. And then in the summer, that water would just be heated up by roof solar panels, water heating panels, and then in the winter, then the ground will be all warmed up there, and the water will be warmed up, and it'll help keep the place above freezing. So, and then the electrical part that could get very expensive. This basically is the pole yard. So when poles come in, cross arms and all that kind of stuff, and if we get a full-blown lineman's truck, that's what all this is for out here. This electrical situation here is not going to cut the mustard. It can be made to work, but it's really going to interfere with a lot of the proper operations here. And the power company is very uncooperative. So the big problem with the electrical system right off is, of course, because this is an MV energy, the high voltage neutral is connected to the low voltage neutral, which is then connected to, low voltage neutral is connected to the ground rod and the metal pipes. And so the entire side of the building is now hot with the high voltage neutral, which is not acceptable in any kind of research situation to have something like that, and it's just downright dangerous. So it places a strong potential difference possibility against the water tanks.
So they're right, the water tanks are right there?
Are right next to it, and their vents are right next to it, and they're at zero potential, and then right next to that is this metal building that can be any kind of potential depending upon lightning strikes or ground faults to the system or harmonics or any of that. And so right off it's a shock hazard. So the only way to deal with that is to put in a wooden pole away from the building and terminate the electrical surface on that, and the meter and everything goes on that, and then plastic pipe will carry it into the transformers into the building to keep any of the NIMV energy neutral transients out of the building. Now, the only way that the power company will cooperate in alleviating this mess up here is to put in another pole, and they will not provide a delta connection. That's not totally their fault. The National Electrical Code, the queeks now that have got their fingers in regulating that, are working hard to eliminate the delta, but they will give us a delta primary, and also they have agreed tentatively to not connect the high voltage neutral to our neutral. So what will go in here is a symmetrical three-phase 480 volt Y-connected system. We won't use the neutral, and that will come into the building. And at that point, we wouldn't need an insulating pole because we'd be isolated, and then get metered for 440 rather than 220, and then the taps would be changed on the isolation transformers from 220 to 440, and then that way we would have a completely symmetrical, relatively harmonic free, no neutral complication electrical system, which is the proper way to go about it. So NV Energy wants about $30,000 to put that pole in with the transformers, and then it would probably be another $3,000 or $4,000 to change the service entrance from 220 to 440. And I can't say what's going to cost right off, but it seems to me it's going to be about $30,000 at least in the building for all the panel boards, and then the extensive distribution system to carry the power everywhere. So that's one of the biggest cost items here, is to get the electrical, and then the next down is to get all the walls up in the building, and then down from that is the ventilating system. And how much all that's going to come up to, I can't really say, but it's going to be in the $100,000 bracket.
Okay.
So I guess we can go in the trailer, or container more properly.
Okay, we're going to take a trip into the land of Glom.
So the guy with the radio museum refers to this as Aladdin's cave. And it kind of smells like the radio room of a Navy ship in here. Because it just about is, as far as the parts go. So there is virtually everything in here that is needed to put together what we need to put together. So a lot of it gets taken apart for the parts. And let's see, there's another oscilloscope here. I didn't even know I had this. So these are all the parts for that Western Electric O carrier system. So there's enough stuff here to provide 4 working terminals. Then various radio receiving items, test equipment, things that will be pulled apart for the parts. These are some old chipboard mechanical analog computers that might be used for phase correcting. This is a Air Force 1 kilowatt HF transmitter that's going to be restored for transmitting the various signals from the mine out on the air. These are some of the amplifiers. These pieces of test equipment serve as amplifiers for the earth signal receiving. Anytime they're not custom built, these are convenient in that they're complete. So if other stations get set up like out there in the Mojave, rather than building a bunch of equipment, we just use these things that are already made. So that was a rare find. And loads of parts. This is all stuff to be stripped for parts. This stuff gets stripped for parts to make like other transmitters. These are the chart recorders for the seismic pen.
Other specific parts you're still looking for that you don't have, or you pretty much have what you need, or?
Well, other than like some minor items, everything's pretty much here. It's just a matter of getting the stuff stripped that needs to be stripped and getting all of this organized, because right now if you wanted to find anything in here, there's virtually no way to do it.
So that'll be one of the next projects.
That's kind of the next project, is to get this all cleaned up, and then there's kind of an excess of, you know, like I might have, here I have 12,000 capacitors. I don't need 12,000 of these capacitors.
So we'll be eBaying this on another trip.
So, and then there's kind of an excess of test equipment, so.
And this will be used to help raise some funds too, because there's a lot of capacitors.
A lot of capacitors there. So, and then I got like extra test equipment that I can give other people that want to fool with this stuff. They can get some of the basic meters and what have you. So I tend not to strip that kind of stuff. It's basically, it's virtually a museum in here. So there's things that could be stripped but maybe won't get stripped, like those. Those are complete transmission measuring sets, but some of the parts in there are more valuable than the measuring sets themselves, so I would estimate that those would get stripped. These, we have a bunch of these things in varying degrees of bad shape. It's unnecessary to get one of these rack mount type running. Very high priority project, because this is what's used to, it's called a selective voltmeter. It's what's used to analyze the various signals coming in off the telluric antennas. So I think I got several. I've got enough where I know I can get one of them working, possibly two. They could provide one to somebody else that might want to use it.
If anybody has transmitting modules for PRC-47s, let us know.
Yeah, PRC-47 is not easy to keep going this day and age. So all these tubes have to be sorted here, because there's no way to get to anything particular or know what's in what box. So that's basically the vacuum tubes and the tip ring sleeve plugs and jacks and patch panels. That's the first thing to dig out in here. It's all the patching stuff and the vacuum tubes, and then find the power cables and interconnect cables to all of the equipment that is so thoroughly buried in here now. It would be futile to try to get them out, but I know they're in here somewhere. So that's basically the next episode, is to get as much restructuring and sorting done in here as possible. But it was quite an effort to get to this point, and Steve Hills had to do a lot of hunting to find all this stuff. Basically, he covered the entire country looking for these parts and managed to find various stashes all around the country and then brought them here. So now we're pretty much loaded up.